Great. This is the public recording 7/13/2017 SIG Scalability. Good morning, everybody. I was looking over the notes from last time. Looked like pluggable event storage. Was there follow-ups for this week? I couldn't really tell.
Merrick's got a proposal if you want to run through it. That doesn't cover the pluggable aspect, but it covers the refactor bits.
Yep, so like we need two topics, right? Like the one is the pluggable storage or whatever, like exporting events to some other like persistent store. And second is like making events scale. So I shared the proposal for the latter like today. I saw that team, or at least started reading it because it's a long one. And some other people also like requested access, like Joe, who's not here.
This is different than the doc that's posted in the notes from last time.
Oh, it's very different. It's a completely new one.
Is it in the Google Groups thread?
Yep. I shared it with 6K or whatever the name is.
Okay, it's in Slack. Then you're saying. All right.
It's in Slack? I don't see it in Slack. That's a difference. In Slack, there's a different doc.
If you get a minute, can you update the meeting notes with the right doc?
Sure, I can do it right now, actually. Oh, Joe is reading the doc. That's not a pluggable event storage, that's an event refactor.
Oh, all right, you rewrite it as appropriate. Event refactor doc, there we go.
Yeah, so I can shortly summarize the changes. Like like the proposal, like there are two like related, but also in some sense separate things that we need to do with events. One is of less interest to us, though it's also of interest to us, like which is changing event semantics. Basically, like the most important change is adding the micro timestamp, like microsecond precision timestamp. So events can be used for profiling. And like some other semantic changes that actually events will be like have some well-defined meaning, and like message or like human readable strings won't carry any semantic information to them, which is that kind of make it impossible to understand what's like it's hard for both developers and users, right? Like the developers don't know what to write there, and users don't know what to expect.
So I made a comment in the document where I said I wanted to tie it directly to some resource objects. It's possible to not have that happen, but to make the interface, like change eventf in the code so that way it's tied directly through an interface. So that way every single event is actually tied to a resource object without you, because right now events can be completely decoupled, right?
Yes, and they need to. Like we want to have events that say whatever kubelet started, which doesn't have any resource there.
Well, it's a node resource. Kubelet started. I mean, everything is tied to a resource in the system.
Not really. So like whatever, like the controller manager, like replication controller, controller manager, whatever. Tied to what? When it starts, or scheduler, or API server, whatnot. API server.
Well, they're all components. They're all pods that are running, but you know.
And like the idea behind this API change, like for the meaning, is that every action is done by some component, right? Like those are the active parts of the system. And events should be like treated as a kind of as an active voice sentences. So like some component did something with something, right? Yeah. So the component is actually like the important notion.
So you could say subcomponent verb and then subject, where subject would be the object of some type.
Subject would be a component and object would be an object.
So if you...
That's like an active sentence. Like the subject does something. So the component will be a subject.
We might want to spell that out in the very beginning of the... Well, I'll make a comment. I got to finish reading through it because I've only got like a couple way through.
I think I tried to spell it out, like after like the analysis of what's wrong now, like the spelled out background. But like from our perspective, I think more important change is the semantics of like the changes in performance for events. Like one of the biggest problems. Actually, I should share with Derek as well. One of the biggest problems in events, like from the performance perspective, not debugging performance, but like really performance, is that we emit events over, like we call my server every time something happens, even in a crash loop when it's not really interesting. So the idea is that instead of doing that, we will have like a single event, which needs to be updated periodically because like otherwise the TTL will kick in. But basically we'll have only, like in principle, we should have only 2 calls per like the series of events for a crash loop. Like the one when this series starts. So like pod can't be scheduled and like it's going on and going on and going on. Up until the time when it finishes, so like it doesn't occur anymore.
How do you prevent the TTL from, like, if it goes on for a really long period of time?
So before, like, for this reason, we just need to update the event with whatever something counts. I suggest just to keep the count for this very reason, every half an hour or something.
I was having a chat with someone at Google who's not on the Kubernetes project, someone separate, and I was just chatting with them about this topic generally. And her observation to me was that in Borg, there's a concept of just throwing events away on some sort of back-off basis when you get into these loops where, so like coalescing, I think you're talking about effectively coalescing events, right? You have the same thing over and over again, so you kind of coalesce it. And she was saying that in Borg, what they do is they just throw messages away on some sort of back-off basis because they're just presumed to be uninteresting.
Yep. So this is kind of the same idea, but instead of doing the back-off, I just like tell that the only important like moments is when this starts and when it ends, and maybe like how many times it occurred in between. But we don't need them, like you don't need the back-off. Like the important thing is when it started and that point and that in time, and then at this point in time, right? Like this is it.
Just increment the counter, basically, you're saying.
Well, that's what we have currently, but we don't need to increment the counter all the time. So we only will, I mean, like in the perfect world, when we would not have the TTL, it would be only the start and the end. So the two the creation of the event and like the update when it finishes. Because like if you know that the event occurs and this is actually a series, well, like first you create an event, which is a singleton event. Then if it occurs second time, you change like the type, or actually like I call it event series. So like it is clear that this is not a single event. It's just like something that's ongoing. So like the user will see it and see that it's like it's ongoing series until it sees like the finish marker.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that is a significant conceptual change for sure.
That's true, but like we just can't support the current model. Like it's just impossible.
I've seen exactly the same model adopted in telco systems from days gone by. And seem to work very well because you have these cases where some incident, some state change occurs, and you just need to observe the fact that that effectively you're in a certain different state, and then when the state changes, you update the state, rather than.
Yep. So that's
So
kind of.
It's I think a well-established pattern. So.
I don't know about it, but yeah, I can just like believe you. So that's like the important change from my perspective, and hopefully it will solve a lot of problems that we currently observe with when their users try to create pods that they don't have quota for or whatever, which overloads a master machine because like events are getting emitted every single whatever number of them every second.
All right. Well, I'll have to finish it up there. Okay. This is pretty. You're thinking this is a 1.8, a 1.8.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the changes except these the implementation-wise, it's not huge thing. Except of course going through the events we currently emit and just fix them. But this can be done slowly. The big changes and probably scheduler or something or kubelet or whatever that can be done will be done in 1.8. The infrastructure changes in events are not that big. The big thing is the proposal to get it through.
The biggest offender is the kubelet. We fixed the scheduler a long time ago so that it doesn't actually do the repetitive loops that it used to do. But the kubelet is the biggest offender, because if you get in a series of crash loop cycles or overcommit error messages, you can spam the whole system.
Sure, we can start with kubelet. Kubelet. The thing is it's impossible to assume that it will events will be rewritten in the whole system, because no. But we can assume it will be rewritten in the most crucial parts.
I would like to have at least a formal. I haven't read through all of it yet, but I would like to have a formalized structure for event messages.
That's the goal. Yes.
Yeah. Because right now it's totally ad hoc, craptacular. Yep. So.
Yep. So I tried to get there. It's not easy for very many reasons. And naming is insanely hard. Object is so overloaded term that it's just impossible.
Oh, so just to be clear, so the problem is not specifically with kubelet, but it's with client Go, right? Because
kubelet only has a lot of events. It's both. It's not only back off. It's just the fact that it doesn't have shit ton of events.
Okay, so pretty much, so any node agent can do this. Even NPD, we saw this even for NPD.
Well, anything but NPD does usually doesn't trigger number of that doesn't send to the huge number of events, I guess.
I think it does. It does. That is one of the problems, that NPD and kubelet both send events in case of container crash looping.
Well, yes, but the kubelet is bigger. We can start with the bigger one. It's impossible to start everywhere in the same time.
Oh, and another question I had about so your this event thing is, so by actually depending on these two events for opening and closing, this means you're actually making an edge-based system or a level-based system, which is I'm not very sure if it's.
But that's for actuation. That's not for reporting.
I mean, in some sense, you could call this whatever sending these events as a controller.
No.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's not exactly changed.
It's not making any changes to the system. It's not acting. It doesn't change any resources. That actually.
Okay.
And events should be edge-based. They are and they will be ever. You can't have an event system level-based, because you would do what? Send an event every time, every second, saying that the level is.
Well, the idea of patching once every TTL time is kind of level based, right? Like when you're not sending this closing event at the end, but you're periodically sending an update.
That's much lower bandwidth for the. So the way I view it is it's definitely edge based, and it has to be because the sentence is always going to be subject, verb, object. The component does something to the resource, right? And that's always the case for every single event. It's never anything else. Like the kubelet did something to a pod. The controller manager or this controller did something to this declarative.
Oh yeah. So I'm not talking about, I get your point. So I'm not talking about the like the event itself being edge based. I'm talking about this whole process of deduplicating being edge based, because what you're doing is you're sending the event as soon as you see the first copy, and then for all the further duplicates you're not doing anything, and then when you stop seeing it you send the second event. So this process of deduplication itself is edge based, and like I'm just curious what is going to happen if you actually lose the end event. Is the series going to get orphaned, or like, or are you going to keep retrying this closing event? And how are you going to do that? Like, is the closing event going to be retried like now, or is it going to have a back off? And if you're going to have a back, sorry?
Doesn't matter. As long as it will eventually get in, it's fine.
Okay, but then why are we not doing this for the events itself? Like instead of these opening and closing events, why are we not doing this for the actual event itself that you just keep resending with backups?
This doesn't make the number of calls smaller.
Well, you're going to increase the backup, of course. Like
no, but it's still it will send exactly the same number of calls which we need to limit. So like it doesn't change anything.
Are you sure? Because like
yes,
right now
we need to make sure that there is smaller number of patch or whatever event calls in the system, period. And like adding backup doesn't do that.
Well, an exponential backoff is going to do that, right? Like right now we're just resending every 1 second in kubelet. I think that is what happened.
You will set, if you just add backup, you will eventually send every single event, right? Backup doesn't change number of events. You just like send them slower. Number is still the same. It just doesn't change anything.
Okay, I see. But isn't the throughput more important? Like, isn't the rate more important than the number? Like, the number of events is going to be high. Yes, I agree.
Boss. HCD, like we also don't want HCD to snapshot every 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yep, that makes sense.
So I think we could probably take the comments to the doc and have a review.
Yes, yes. I shared it with SIG Scale and like internally with a number of people.
Do you want to use this meeting to have a actual walkthrough review?
Well, I think it's too long. Not this meeting. Like, so this meeting is out of question. We can try next week. But actually, I think that the using Google Doc for review would be useful. And actually, I'm thinking about creating a PR or issue or whatever with the link with the Google Doc, because like of course GitHub is absolutely terrible for reviews, and using Google Doc is way more convenient.
Right. No, I was really just asking if we should schedule use this time slot to do the review, say next week or the week after.
I would hope to get it sooner, but yes.
All right. Well, let's tentatively plan on next week, and then see if it doesn't actually pull together by that point. We'll.
Fair point.
All right.
I just had a tiny thing on the agenda about ongoing validation of the cluster performance. Sham put together a proposal, CC'd people, Tim Hawken and myself of LGTM'd it. There was pushback from Jeremy Eder. I just wanted to give a last call before I go ahead and merge this doc. It's linked in the meeting notes. I can link in chat real quickly. It's basically about the schedule for when and how we run 2K and 5K node tests continuously, and whether or not we want to attempt to use these as release blocking signals when alpha and beta releases are cut.
So what are the concerns of Jeremy Eder? That it goes too far or doesn't go far enough?
Have you had a chance to look at the pull request here?
Well, no. I was.
Well, he basically said that we are actually, I mean, by excluding the discussion of SLOs, SLIs, and what the details of the tests are going to be, it is actually in conflict with the problem that we are addressing. That I mean, I think his main concern basically was that we should also specify what are we going to exactly test for, which is kind of a independent issue with respect to the process itself, because like we've said, like for the purpose of defining this process, all we care about is this suite of tests called feature performance, whatever is underlying it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this document was more about how we prioritize and take action based on certain suites of jobs, not necessarily what the contents of those suites are.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to sanity check with this group before I went ahead and clicked the merge button. That's pretty much it.
Hey,
I apologize for being late. On the events thing, is there a plan to eventually get an issue created in the Kubernetes features repo to track this effort?
I know of Kubernetes features because I don't have access to Kubernetes features, and I would like to have access, be able to do anything with this. I certainly want to create an issue and link to the doc. I don't want to have a discussion in GitHub because it's impossible.
No, I understand that. I'm proposing it from the perspective of making sure we have something to track the ongoing effort, because this sounds too large to land in 1.8.
I think it's not. Well, but yes, I agree. I plan to put it in somewhere. Well, I don't know.
I kind of agreeing with Aaron here that it probably should be feature tracked because this is user visible.
Exactly. Like, I know we have quote unquote told users not to use issues, citation needed on that, but I think just for the element of least surprise, being able to communicate this early and track efforts ongoing in case people do raise concerns down the line. I think this merits a higher level of visibility.
Fair point. I will ask someone from the product team to do this. But I would like basically get to take engineers to review this because, well,
I agree. I think so in the schedule where we do tech review of the Google Doc within the next week, we have a meeting. We can use this time next week to hash out verbally any disagreements we may have, close this out, and then create the feature issue and link to the proposal in GitHub. That was sort of my hope. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
all right. That sounds good. I had one small bit of business kind of related to the large cluster testing. Aaron and I had a short meeting with the some of the Oracle team that has recently announced that they're going to be doing a lot of support for Kubernetes. And one of the things that we were encouraging them to do is take a look at running the 2,000 and 5,000 node tests. Do we think that the current state of that it's relatively straightforward to point them to something that they can go do and be useful, or do we need to give them some additional coaching or guidance?
I'm slightly confused because the quote unquote statement from Oracle was that they were going to be involved, right? So
Right.
you're kind of acting like a proxy. So I think coming here would be beneficial.
Right. We did encourage them. We did specifically encourage them to do that. But I guess what I was really looking for was the sanity check on the advice that Aaron and I were giving them, which was, hey, show up to SIG testing, show up to SIG scale. One of the things you should be looking at in SIG scaling is running the large cluster suites that we were just talking about, and providing those results. This is sort of similar to the packet. If you look at the control plane config doc that we're using to define the control plane configurations for the large scale tests, there isn't presently an Oracle line, right? There's an AWS line. So one of the things I'm trying to get done is to get an Oracle line added to that. So, well, consider that an update at least. But feedback is welcome.
Yeah, but they will need to dedicate resources to actually running those. Like by resources, I don't only mean computers. I mean people, which is like more costly, I guess.
No, for sure, and I think that's what we were encouraging them to do.
Okay.
I saw people or really awesome puppets. One of the two. They were there.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think we're out of topics. We're also out of time officially. Should we call it a wrap? All right. We're a wrap for today. See you guys at community meeting or next week.
Yeah, and if anyone has any spare time, I would be grateful for reviewing the events doc, because like this is like a big thing.
All right. You bet.
The title made me cringe a little bit, but I appreciate your creativity on it.
I'm in Europe, I don't care.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.